We all know how it feels to, make a mess of things. You had that project at work that you worked really hard on, but it was a total flop. And it embarrassed you in front of everyone there at work. And then we have this great idea of a vacation. And that just goes completely wrong at every turn. Nothing worked out. And then even some days you break a glass while you're washing the dishes, or you're in a hurry because you're late for work and you spill coffee on your shirt. And that can feel like the last straw in a string of failures. And on a day full of mishaps, it's easy to end up feeling crushed or even to get depressed. It might seem irrational to keep up good spirits in the face of all these failures. It's easy to blame ourselves for being clumsy, tired, slow, or even stupid. And if we don't blame ourselves, unfortunately, we start blaming others. But there was a remarkable young man named Joseph of Cupertino. He had just this kind of life. And he has a secret for persevering through the failures that is truly remarkable. So stick with me and you'll find out all about it. Now, before we meet this young Joseph, I want to invite you to get to know the online faith formation platform of the Heralds of the Gospel. And this online platform is called Reconquest, and it's a part of our mission to reconquer the world for Jesus Christ through the intercession of our Blessed Mother. So I invite you to take a look at the link in the description. It's a wonderful source of spiritual formation for the whole family. And also, your subscription will help support our ministry. So with that said, let's start to delve in, to discover the secret of St. Joseph Cupertino's cheerful perseverance. St. Joseph, he had everything set against him as a boy, both at home and at school. Yet, from an early age, he had a secret that kept him going. So, together with my trusty magnifying glass, let's take a closer look to see how he overcame all these setbacks. It was the year of our Lord, 1603, in rural Puglia, a district in southeastern Italy. Joseph's father had gotten the family, unfortunately, deep into debt, and his mother had to give birth to Joseph in a stable to avoid the loan sharks and the landlords who were always coming by looking for their pay. Little did she know that a stable would play a key role in his future. Joseph was not given many natural gifts. He was clumsy, awkward, and he was not too bright. He learned his schoolwork only very slowly, and not enough to please his teachers. He was teased by the other boys, especially for his spelling, his standing open-mouthed, gazing at nothing. He couldn't carry on a conversation. He couldn't even learn any sports or games that all the other boys enjoyed. And yet, his life at home was no refuge even from all these failures at school. There on the farm, he was no help to his frustrated mother. If she sent him on an errand, he promptly forgot what he was supposed to fetch. If given things to carry, he dropped and broke them. Well, his poor mother and father, losing their minds, trying to cope with this useless boy, tried to come up with a practical solution, and one that might bring a little money to this struggling family. So they sent him to learn to be a shoemaker. He was an apprentice to a shoemaker. And as I'm sure you already guessed, that didn't work out. He was slow to learn, clumsy in his attempts to do the work, and prone to moments of such absent-mindedness that the shoemaker lost his patience and sent Joseph home. Now, young Joseph was quite aware of his failings. He was a disappointment to his parents, to his teachers and now his potential employer. But he had no idea what to do about this. One day, Providence offered an idea. A Franciscan friar came to the village begging for alms. The Franciscan order was founded in the year of our Lord 1207. So they had been a fixture of Christian life in the villages of rural Italy for 400 years or so. The Franciscan friars lived solely on donations. And so they went through the streets every day, each and every day, to beg for food and for any of the other whatever they needed. So that gave Joseph a brilliant idea. That I can do. He thought, surely even a slow and clumsy oaf like myself can be a begging friar. He was happy to have discovered a way to unburden his parents and make himself useful. So he packed a bag and walked to the nearest convent of the Franciscans, and he went and knocked on the door. The friars took a long look at the awkward young man and shook their heads. They did not want to take in someone who was just going to be a hindrance, a burden, and a problem for them. Undaunted, Joseph walks to the next nearest convent and knocked on that door. Nope. There too he was rejected. And off he went to the next convent. No, 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 no. Again and again he was turned away. Anyone might expect a young man in such circumstances to, give up. To have his spirit crushed by the repeated rejections. Yet he continued his search with cheerful perseverance. Somehow, Joseph could cheerfully carry on in the face of every setback and every failure. But how could he do that? While it is true that St. Joseph Cupertino was not gifted with great intelligence, and he was awkward, clumsy, and slow, he had a gift that was overlooked by those who were frustrated by his uselessness. He loved God with his whole heart. And what others mistook, you could say, for absent-mindedness were spells in which he was swept up in the vision of God's presence, that he could not move but only stand open-mouthed in awe. And it was this love of God that sustained him through endless worldly rejections and failure. Others saw him as, who achieved nothing. He wasn't handsome and charming. He couldn't hold down a job. He didn't carry on engaging conversations. He wasn't even very good at washing dishes. So in the eyes of the world, these are the signs of a loser and someone worth only disdain or perhaps maybe piety. But God chooses his friends among the low as well as the high. Saints may be princes or priests, or they may be children or the poor or overlooked. It's easy to admire people for their worldly achievements and qualities. Look at the attention that is showered on celebrities and politicians of every kind, even those of immoral life. But in God's eyes, the thing that matters is his love for us and our love for him. And that St. Joseph Cupertino had in abundance. We need this too in order to carry on with cheerful perseverance in the face of trials, failures, and rejections that we suffer in our own lives. And one of the most powerful ways to grow in that abundant love for God is through consecrating ourselves to our Blessed Mother. By giving ourselves to her entirely, we let her holy hands guide us in the surest way to her Son, Jesus. The consecration is totally free and completely online. So for that, I'm going to leave a link in the description below. So don't hesitate. Click on that link and you'll find out how powerful the consecration is. Now, St. Joseph's love of God didn't mean that his problems were over. God's predilection for a soul rarely means an easy life. Keep that in mind. In fact, it's much to the opposite. St. Joseph's natural clumsiness, you could say, made even his work in the kitchen a trial. Now, you can imagine, Joseph even dropped trays of food on the way to the dining hall. He broke dishes while washing them. and sometimes simply just wandered off, carrying some item for the table only to be discovered in, I don't know, just somewhere outside, staring at nothing. The friars glued pieces of broken dishes to his habit in an attempt to remind him of his duties. But it made no difference. To Joseph's great sorrow, he was expelled. Well, this was, you could say, only the beginning of his adventures. For having failed at so many things, he will fail in yet a few more. But as we'll see in the next episode, he will reach an abyss of suffering before finally finding his way. And in that context, we will see how he discerned the will of God and how we too, each and every one of us, we can know and follow God's plan for us. Because God has a plan for each and every one of us. So, with that in mind, I hope to see you in the next video. God bless and Salve Maria.